Khalid is here because, as I understand it, he hates the white man. I am here because I love the black woman. Now, I am here in hopes that we can that we can prevent a resurrection of an insurrection. We saw that several years ago, and I don't want to see that happen again. It's going to benefit no one. Khalid and I both were shot by black men, but that does not make the black man the enemy. Any more than if we were shot by white men would it make the white man the enemy. Our enemies cannot be recognized by their state of color, but rather their state of mind. All black men do not think alike, any more than white men think alike. We are all different. God, in His divine plan, has made us individuals. We have the right of freedom in this country. And I would like to see it flourish rather than die. Never in the annals of human history has so few done so much so often to take so much and hurt so many as the warlords of Washington and Wall Street. There isn't anything that you have or ever had or ever hope to have that they're not planning on taking away. They want it all. And they intend to get it all. Khalid says that the white man is the enemy. But I say he is in part right. It is not the white man that is the enemy, but it is certain white men. All right, now if somebody has a problem in telling the difference, then they need to get educated. Am I your enemy because I am white? Am I your enemy because I tell you the truth? I take a look at the chart of the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. This is mainly made up of white men. If I take a look at David Rockefeller, I take a look at Henry Kissinger, and George Bush, and Comrade Clinton. They're all from the same organization, the Council on Foreign Relations. 30 years ago, I produced these albums called the Illuminati CFR, 1967. From these albums came a number of books. None dare call it conspiracy. That particular book is put out at this present time by the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, a man who I happen to respect, a man who has got the message, a man who, like Malcolm X, has discovered that it is not the white man that is the enemy, but certain white men. And I think that there is a widening difference between Khalid Muhammad and Louis Farrakhan, and I'm going to discuss that difference in a moment. When Khalid talks about killing the white man, killing the mothers and the sisters, the brothers, the babies and grandma and the cripples, and burying them and digging them up and killing them again. That is the talk of a black bigot. We're talking about, at least I'm talking about, America's Black Hitler. And I think he has deserved that title. racism can be exploited. And I believe Khalid Muhammad is exploiting that. See, we have an opportunity to change things around. We have an opportunity to incite a revelation, to avoid a revolution. This is an awakening, and this awakening must happen. Because when I say they intend to kill you, I'm talking about this Cassius cartel, I'm not kidding. Yes, they are white. There's no question that the enemy in this country is white. And we have to recognize it. But it is not the white man collectively. It is certain white men. The Central Intelligence Agency is the control arm of the Council on Foreign Relations. In the CIA, actually, started by Wild Bill Donovan. From the OSS, it went to the CIA. Walter Bedell Smith from 1945 to 53. Allen Dulles from 53 to 1961. John A. McCone. And that was from 61 to 63. And then from Richard Helms from 63 to 69. From 69 to 77, James Schlesinger, William Colby, George Bush. George Bush was ambassador to Communist China. In fact, a fellow at a party one time had told me about a situation where he was in Vietnam, actually I think in Laos at this particular time. They were dealing in drugs, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the suits had just come in. And this fellow was taking wounded, and they were putting him in this helicopter to fly out. When the suits arrived, the head suit was taking the wounded out of the plane. He said, "What are you doing? The lives of these men depend upon them going." He says, "No, we've got to get the heroin out." And this fellow took a gun, 45. He cocked it, and he put it at the head of the chief suit. He said, "The wounded goes out first. The heroin goes out second." Later, this man was in trial. This is in Las Vegas. And the Secret Service had come up in this trial. And they accused him of making threats against the life of the president. And this man looked back, he said, he wasn't the president then, he was just another dope dealer. And we're talking about George Bush. Here's a picture of George Bush and Pineapple Head, Noriega. They said that he did not know Noriega. Drugs that come into this community by the Central Intelligence Agency for destabilization programs. They want you to be brought into a riotous situation. They want a black-white confrontation situation. They want it to flare up. They want it to be inflamed. Because they want to bring in the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And from that, they will incarcerate you and bring the young black men into prison for slave labor. That is their intention. Years ago, I had predicted the assassination of President Kennedy, and it occurred. I predicted the assassination of Martin Luther King, and it occurred. That occurred about 3 months after I had made that prediction. And still there was another, of Bobby Kennedy. And at that particular time, I was at the Ambassador Hotel. I was trying to disrupt things with the Kennedy campaign. We had bumper stickers that said, "Keep the faith, Kennedy Powell 68. Powell was being indicted. I figured that the black community might go for that ticket, which I thought would destroy Kennedy. Because I wanted to see him taken out politically, not physically. Suddenly, there was an explosion. The whole room erupted and everybody was scrambling. The fellow was being brought out in handcuffs. And I I took a look at him, and I knew that he was hypnotized. And I knew the events that were going to occur, they were going to try to blame this assassination on those individuals of like mind who were in my company. I put a little disinformation out. We put out a book called The Man, the Mysticism, and the Murder. And at that time, they were so frightened of the message which was coming out through the McNaught Syndicate, through Walter Winchell, and I was dealing with Walter at that particular time. We had written the articles for 5 front-page headlines. But then they decided to put out a message to all of those who were trying to discover what was happening about the assassination. And they put out a book called The Assassination of Robert Francis Kennedy. I'm in that book, accused of hypnotizing Sirhan Sirhan to kill Bobby Kennedy. Did I? No. But I mean, it was a wild accusation, and some people believed it. And some people believe that I'm an agent provocateur. Some people believe that Khalid Muhammad is an agent provocateur. But I take a look at what's happening in this country, and I know that we have to change things around. I take a look at the statement, and this is by Dr. Bertrand Russell. And this is the title of one of our tapes called Mega Murder, the Final Solution, the Genetic Engineering of AIDS. He said, war has been disappointing in this respect. And we're talking about eliminating massive amounts of people off the planet Earth. They intend to reduce the population of this planet by 1,250,000,000 people by the turn of the century. They consider you to be expendable, to be useless eaters. They are elitist, they are racist, they are insane. And these people control the United States of America. Dr. Bertrand Russell, who was an early Illuminist, was disappointed in the fact that the world population is increasing about 58,000 per diem. That's what he said at the time. He said war so far has been unsuccessful in reducing the numbers of the individuals. He said war has hitherto been disappointing in this respect, but perhaps bacteriological war may prove effective. If a black death could spread throughout the world once in every generation, survivors could procreate freely without making the world too full. This man was party to a plan to destroy the black race. AIDS was genetically engineered. It was designed to kill you. It came out in a laboratory, and a friend of mine, Dr. Robert Strecker, and I have worked together. We put out a tape called Mega Murder. He's also on Mega Murder, the Final Solution. Dr. Strecker's tape is handled by Louis Farrakhan. Bill Cooper's book, Behold the Pale Horse, is handled by Louis Farrakhan. The Unseen Hand is handled by Louis Farrakhan, by Ralph Epperson. Of course, Khalid thinks that Epperson is the devil. He must think that Dr. Strecker is the devil. And certainly Dr. Lynn Horowitz, who's come out with the book Emerging Viruses. And Dr. Horowitz has been with none other than Louis Farrakhan. And I'm wondering where all of this is taking us. I see at one hand Farrakhan exposing the enemy within, directionalizing his attacks, making sense. On the other hand, I take a look at Khalid Muhammad, making no sense at all. I'm going back to Nazi Germany for a moment, and at the end of the war, the OSS, at the end of the war, the OSS, which became the CIA, brought in 1,500 German scientists and doctors. They were involved in genetic engineering. Here's a particular picture. This is with Nazi Germany's wartime rocket chief, Walter Dornberger. On the left, he's seen with Werner von Braun. Dornberger set the schedule, and 20,000 individuals were murdered in the Nordhausen concentration camp. We have concentration camps being set up in the United States of America. 7 out of 10 young black men, 18 to 25, are either in prison, just getting out of prison, or getting ready to go in prison. They will be used for slave labor if this New World Order is successful. And there's only one thing stopping it. That's us. I'm suggesting an alliance. I'm suggesting that we work together than fight. And I'm taking a look at America's first chief of the clandestine operations, Frank Wisner. He was an OSS officer in 1945. The CIA became the headquarters for covert warfare, and they developed all sorts of things. One of the things that they developed was anti-gravitational flying discs. Here's the Haunebu. These were operational in 1943. These have been tested, they have been developed. The public is told that they're crazy when they see something like this. But you go up to Area 51 and they say, oh, Area 51 doesn't exist. This is where they developed the U-2, the SR-71 Blackbird, the F-117. Here's a picture in Popular Science of the base, the longest runway in the world. And on this base, I believe that they have Frankenstein factories. They have developed strange-looking species. I believe that they have developed the chupacabra. And if you don't know about that, you will. I mean, it's a scary-looking little devil. And this thing here has quills. Eyes sort of like when an alien, and can jump about 20 feet. It sucks the blood out of its victims. Now you say, well, you know, these are wild stories. But in Puerto Rico, they have been seen. So I'm taking a look at Operation Paperclip as something that the CIA created, something that the CIA carried out. And we take a look at the Dr. Mengeles working in these Frankenstein factories. We take a look at a number of events that have taken place, all of a negative nature. I believe that the insurrection that occurred here was not engineered by black people, but rather engineered by certain white people in the Central Intelligence Agency. And I happen to know that that is a fact, and I have it on film, with one of the agents saying that they brought in cocaine, crack cocaine, and they brought in guns into this neighborhood. They want you to riot. They want you out into the streets. They want you in jail. They want to kill you, incarcerate you, or control you by the turn of the century. There isn't anything you have, or ever had, or ever hope to have, that they're not planning on taking away. I'm saying that they intend to kill you. They intend to incarcerate you, or they intend to control you. And that happens to be a fact. Now, years ago, they took blacks out of Africa, and they had slave bracelets like this. This is a real one. Now, they have a more sophisticated program. They intend to use biochips and transponders. I have a little chip here. One is the Hughes ATMS. That's the automatic. Well, this little transponder will replace the VIN number in your car. The Hughes ATMS, so they can tell where your car is at all times. And then there's a little teeny transponder here, and it's used for all pets leaving the pound in Los Angeles. Mandatory now. But here's the other one. the teeny weeny one. This is intended to be used on you. And if tomorrow they said all of the women on welfare are going to be inoculated. We're going to have a little biochip in the back of your hand. Because when you go to the store and you buy, we can't tell what you're buying. You could be selling these welfare tickets. So we have to trace you. We have to track you. We have to use something of this nature to identify you. Now you probably can't see those, but maybe we can find them underneath here. These transponders, these instruments, are used to track an individual from a satellite. There won't be anywhere you go. There won't be anything you can buy without these. And if the welfare mother said, listen, the children were not going to eat unless they inoculated the child. And they inoculated the mother. There would be lines around the block like there was lines around this block in the morning. Now this particular piece here is an identifier. The blacks and browns on the military base in Cuba, Guantanamo, now are being forced to have this around their wrists, or in this case of the children, around their ankles, so that they can be tracked and they can be identified. This slave bracelet and this marker are identical. The only thing that's changed is time. And I'm taking a look at the other things that they have. Eye in the sky to track kids. They want your children identified. They want your child tracked. Satellite imagery to track agricultural fraud. They can tell what crops are being used, what crops are being grown, where they're coming from. They do this by satellite. They intend to control every single solitary thing in this country. And then they intend to dissolve this country and create a one-world government upon the ashes of American sovereignty and the bodies of black men and women. This is not a figment of my imagination. This is... And they have the mark card. And the mark card is the multi-technology automated reader card. Maybe I've got a copy of here it is. It's huge in this photograph, but it's small. This is Robert Wallingford, the Department of Defense. And the mark card attaches to the Battle Engagement Area Simulator tracker. It goes to the beast. The mark and the beast. This is not a figment of my imagination. And when I was showing this little transponder, when I was rattling and lecturing about this in Hawaii at the Waiole Tea Room, fell out in the audience and says, "You're wrong." And I continued, and I said, "No, this is coming." He says, "You're wrong." About the third time I said, "If you know so much, why don't you come up here?" And he did. And I was wrong. He said, "It's not coming, it's here." And he had dug one out of the shoulder of a friend. They had been hiking up above the barracks up in the mountains near Schofield Barracks, where the Japanese came over to bomb Pearl Harbor. And he noticed that a little beeper on their belts. And they had a 2-hour call to get back to Pearl Harbor, if ever they were buzzed. And they were out about 8 months later, and the guy had no beeper, and he said, "Well, I guess you guys aren't on call." He said, "No, we're on call." He said, "Well, it can't be, you don't have a beeper." He said, "No, we're on call, we're on 20-minute call." He said, "Impossible. I mean, how, you couldn't get back to the base." He said, "No, we can get, they'll pick us up." He said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Pick it up. They had this implanted in their shoulders. And when this one petty officer explained the whole thing when he got back to the place, he took a penknife out of his, and dug the transponder out of his friend's shoulder and put it in the wall socket. The government thinks that he's been there for about 2.5 years. This is not a figment of my imagination. So the mark of the beast is being used. And then I take a look at the electronic transfer plan. And this is by a fellow named Al Gore. I'm sure you know of him. Gore the Whore. And by the way, the White House is being run like a whorehouse. And this man should be impeached for high treason. I call in for the impeachment of the President of the United States for high treason. And I would like to see a war crimes trial against all of those individuals who are engaged in this sort of activity. Because they are engaged in murder. I've got a little tape back there called None Dare Call It Murder. And it talks about the Clinton body count. If you took the combined killings of Jeffrey Dahmer, Jack the Ripper, Charles Miles Manson, and John Wayne Gacy and the Hillside Strangler, put them all together, they would be pale in comparison to those who have died around Bill Clinton. And Ron Brown, he said he wasn't going to, he wasn't going to go down alone. He was dirty. He was involved in payoffs. It was Vietnam. Well, he didn't go down alone. He took a lot of people with him. But he wasn't killed because he was dirty, but because he threatened to come clean. Ron Brown was murdered. Vince Foster was murdered. In our tape,
None dare call it murder.
we have a woman called Deborah Von Trapp. And she said she worked out of the White House. She worked with a computer system, and it was compromised. And she said one thing, that the head of her particular unit in the White House had called her drunk the night, I guess it was that night. He says, we did them. And she said, what are you talking about? Did them? Did what? He says, we did them. He says, did who? He says, Vince Foster. They smoked him. Now, it would be more believable. It would be more believable to see the President of the United States walk across the Delaware on water. And I could believe that before I could believe that Vince Foster could walk 760 feet on air. Oh, he didn't have any keys in his pocket when they found his body at the park. They'd searched his pocket. But when he was brought back to the morgue and 2 agents from the President of the United States office, he had 2 sets of keys. Amazing. But he would have had to have a 3rd set of the keys to drive that car. And the witnesses have been intimidated. I'm saying that there is murder. And I'm saying that those individuals who control this country are guilty of murder. And we have a one-party system. I'm saying that this government is a racist government. That they intend to kill you. And the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Division of the Internal Revenue Service is working directly under the command of the President, and they will be at your door. Now, Khalid doesn't believe that individuals in the nation should be armed. I do. I do. This ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms boys, they had a little party down in the South. They called it the Good Old Boys Club. I don't know how many of you remember that. Right? And this is what they issued. These fellows are working for the President of the United States. And on our particular tape, this None Dare Call It Murder, we've got Roger Clinton, and there were the police surveillance tape. And he's leaning over and he's going, oh, he says, that's good stuff. I got to get some for my brother who's got a nose like a vacuum cleaner. I'm saying that boy is doing drugs. I'm talking about the President of the United States who has his finger on the button that could blow up the world. Oh, and the ATF agents, they issued this. It's called a nigger hunting license. Having paid the license fee is hereby granted, this is blank, whoever it is, to hunt and kill niggers during the open search hereof in the U.S. This license can be carried on person when hunting niggers and gives the holder permission to hunt day or night with or without dogs. The season is open from January 1st, closes December 31st. This is the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Division of the Internal Revenue Service. And let me remind you that a nigger is not a state of color, it's a state of mind. I was walking into Liberty Records one day, and I met a lady who I was doing a tape with named Maya Angelou. We did a record called Mambo Like in Africa, thing I wrote with her and Eddie Cano. And we're going down the street. I'm sitting in the car. This is about sunset in La Brea. And a carload of honkies came by, screaming and yelling. This is who? About that big ugly nigger in the car and yelling and screaming at me. What was I doing? Well, I became enraged, incensed. I came in and I tried to sideswipe these guys, and she started screaming and yelling and crying. She's, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I wanted to take out a tire iron and beat the hell out of these bastards. But I discovered that it wasn't the nigger that was in the car. Not our car. It was their car. Maya Angelou pleaded with me successfully. And I kept a calm head. I think that is what we all must do, is keep a calm head and not deal with racism. Because these people intend to use racism as a tool to conquer us and enslave us. They have now a passport for the human hand. It's called the INS Pass, I-N-S, where you put your hand up over the scanner and it registers who you are. The AT&T, they have a smart card. And the AT&T, well, this is part of the American Illuminati. There's transponders come in all sizes. And now they have a thing, it's called KidScan. This identifies the kid. It's supposed to be the new answer. They've got a national ID card that's coming up. Because our jobs have been transferred overseas. The President of the United States has signed NAFTA, which is the SHAFTA. It's high treason. We've gone from a $2 billion surplus to a $16 billion deficit. The borders have been open and there's an invasion of this country from Mexico. And it is putting us out of work, and we have a $40,000 million deficit with Communist China. And in Communist China, they have 7,668 death camps. There's 23 million incarcerated for slave labor. And there's an attrition rate of 25%. That's 5,750,000 people die annually. And the President of the United States has just given them most favored nation status. Now that $40 billion deficit translates into an $80 billion debt for you. Because they create money out of nothing. The Federal Reserve is neither federal nor is it a reserve. It's a private banking institution that creates this funny money for less than 2 cents a note and loans it back to you at face value plus interest. And you would have to be insane to go along with this. And somebody talks about black dollars. There's not going to be any black dollars unless you make the black dollars. Unless you take gold and silver and create a black currency, and I am suggesting that you do this because good money will drive out the bad money. And I don't care whether it's black money or red money, but it should replace this green funny money. It is a fraud. This note said, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and is redeemable in lawful money at the United States Treasury or any Federal Reserve Bank. And this note says we will pay to the bearer on demand $500. If you take a look in your wallet, you'll find out that the note simply says this debt is legal tender for all debts, public and private. It is redeemable in nothing. You need to have a black currency. You need to have wealth. You're not going to have wealth by relying on those who happen to be in the White House who are giving you the same old crap and saying that they're going to give you programs, that they're going to put you on welfare. They're going to keep you like a monkey on a string. You've got to free yourself and break those chains. These people are engaged in chemical and biological warfare. And we have articles upon articles upon articles about it. We've got the tape 666 and Satan System 666. These are the devils. These are the real devils. They developed the Gulf War diseases. I call them the DEADS, doctor-engineered anti-personnel diseases. And yes, it was created in the United States of America, in Boca Raton, Florida. They've got the implantable biochip technology. We've got it. Now they have the technology of control, the police state. Global 2000, biological genocide. And if you would take a look, just one look, at Dr. Leonard Horowitz's tape,